Alessio Romano had forgotten what it felt like to move through the world without everyone watching him. The outdoor cafe was supposed to give him a quiet moment, just a cup of coffee and a breath of air that didn't taste like the inside of his mansion. He wasn't looking for peace in a dramatic way. He just wanted a few minutes where nothing demanded anything from him. He sat near the edge of the cafe in his wheelchair with two guards keeping a respectful distance. People still stared. They always did. Even though he wasn't the man he used to be, the reputation followed him like a shadow that refused to lift. He ignored their looks and tried to focus on the warmth of the cup between his hands. He barely had a second to enjoy it when something small collided into him with surprising force. His wheelchair jerked back an inch. His guards reacted immediately, stepping forward, but Alessio raised a hand to stop them. Papers fluttered in the air, landing across his lap and on the ground like scattered leaves. A little girl stumbled back, clutching an open sketchbook to her chest. Her eyes widened with panic and she froze like she expected punishment. He looked down at one of the papers on his knee. A child's drawing. The girl swallowed hard. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Super Chair." Alessio blinked. He wasn't sure whether he heard her correctly. "What did you call me?" "Mr. Super Chair," she repeated as if it were obvious. Then she crouched down and started picking up her drawings with small, clumsy hands. His guard tried to help, but the girl shrank back, so Alessio waved them off again. He leaned forward and picked up a few papers himself. The drawings were full of bright colors, uneven shapes, and smiling stick figures. One showed a man in a large chair with what looked like cape wings behind him. She reached for that one quickly and held it up proudly. "That's my hero. He fights bad guys from his big chair. He's cool." Alessio stared at her, caught off guard by how freely she spoke. Most adults avoided eye contact with him. Most children hid behind their parents. But this girl didn't seem to know who he was. Or maybe she knew and simply didn't care. She looked down at his wheelchair and then back at the drawing. "Yours is nicer though. Mine doesn't have shiny wheels." A small laugh escaped him before he could stop it. His guards exchanged looks like they'd just seen something impossible. Their boss didn't laugh. Not in public. Hardly ever at all. "What's your name?" he asked. "Mia," she answered confidently. "Mia," he repeated. It sounded soft, fitting. "You should watch where you're running." "I was trying to catch the wind," she said seriously. "It almost stole my drawings." He raised an eyebrow. "Did you catch it?" "No," she sighed. "It's too fast. But it's okay. It can't take all of them." She flipped open her sketchbook and showed him another picture. This one a messy mix of purple clouds and yellow stars. There wasn't a straight line anywhere on the page, but she was proud of it. He didn't understand why he felt a strange warmth in his chest. He barely knew her. But there was something easy about her presence. Something simple. Mia grinned up at him. "Do you want me to draw you? I can make your chair look even cooler. I can add rockets." He couldn't stop the corner of his mouth from lifting. "Maybe another time." She didn't take offense. She just nodded and gathered her things. Before he could say more, a voice cut through the air, sharp with worry. "Mia." Alessio lifted his head at the same moment Mia turned. A woman rushed toward them, breathless, her eyes scanning for danger before settling on her daughter. She dropped to her knees and held Mia close, checking her quickly as if making sure every part of her was still there. "Are you okay? I told you not to run ahead like that." She stopped. Her eyes finally moved upward and landed on Alessio. Her expression froze completely. He paled, but not in fear. It was something heavier. Something that made her lips part and her breath stop. "Elena," he said quietly. She stood slowly, keeping Mia close as if the ground beneath them had shifted. Her voice barely worked. "Alessio." 8 years. 8 years without a word, without a goodbye, without even a trace of where she had gone. He had imagined what he'd say if he ever saw her again. He had imagined anger, coldness, maybe even satisfaction. He hadn't imagined the hollow punch in his chest. Mia tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, I bumped into Mr. Super Chair." Elena's face went even paler. "Our daughter," Alessio said before he meant to. The thought had been hanging in his mind since the woman appeared. He tried to swallow it, tried to be reasonable, tried not to let hope or suspicion get ahead of him. But he couldn't ignore the math forming in his head. Elena stiffened. "She's my daughter." "How old is she?" Alessio asked, already knowing what the answer would be. Elena looked away instead of answering. Mia slipped her hand into her mother's. Mommy, why are you being weird? Elena forced a smile for her child but didn't look at Alessio. How old? He repeated, voice lower. Elena closed her eyes briefly, the way someone does when they finally stop fighting the truth. 7. 7. The exact number Alessio had already counted in silence. Mia tugged on her mother's sleeve again. Mommy, are we going home? Elena forced a steady breath and opened her eyes. He could see the turmoil swirling there, guilt, fear, memories she didn't want to face. Mia, Elena said softly, go stand over there for a second. I'll join you soon. The little girl obeyed, skipping toward the fountain without a clue of the heavy silence she left behind. Alessio and Elena stood facing each other for the first time in years. She opened her mouth, closed it, then finally whispered, I didn't want this moment to happen like this. Yet here we are, he replied. She looked down, unable to meet his eyes. I should take her home. He didn't block her. He didn't raise his voice. He simply asked the question that had been clawing at him from the moment Mia collided with him. Is she mine? Elena didn't speak. She didn't nod. She didn't deny it. The way she gripped her hands, the way her eyes glistened as she stared at the pavement. That was enough. The truth didn't need words. Alessio exhaled slowly. Not in anger. Not in disbelief. Just the weight of reality settling into place. Elena reached for Mia's hand. We should go. Mia waved at him with a bright smile. Bye, Mr. Superchair. He tried to return the smile but it didn't reach his eyes. Elena turned away but she hesitated for a second, long enough for him to see a shimmer of regret before she walked off with the little girl. Alessio stayed where he was, feeling a mix of emotions he had no idea how to process. Confusion, hurt, and something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, dangerously soft and painful. The guards stood nearby, waiting for instructions, but Alessio didn't say anything for a long moment. He just stared at the spot where the little girl with the bright drawings had stood, realizing he couldn't walk away from this. Not again. Not this time. Alessio didn't go home after Elena left with Mia. He stayed at the cafe for another hour, not touching his coffee, barely noticing anyone around him. His thoughts kept circling the same point. The little girl who collided with him, her bright drawings, her easy laughter, the way she hugged her mother without any fear in the world. And the way Elena couldn't answer his question. By the time he finally returned to his mansion, the silence inside felt different. It wasn't comforting. It wasn't peaceful. It felt like a reminder of everything he didn't have and everything he never knew he might have missed. He barely slept that night. So the next morning he left earlier than usual and went back to the same cafe. He didn't know if Elena would come. He didn't know if she ever wanted to see him again. But he wasn't ready to let 8 years of unanswered questions stay buried. He didn't have to wait long. Mia spotted him first. She pointed excitedly from across the street. Mommy. It's Mr. Superchair again. Elena tensed immediately but she didn't turn around and leave. She took Mia's hand and crossed the street slowly. Her steps were steady, but he could see she was bracing herself for whatever would happen next. Mia ran ahead and stopped beside him, smiling brightly. I didn't bump you today. That's progress, Alessio said, managing a small smile. Elena finally reached them, keeping her eyes on Mia rather than him. Mia, come here. Mia didn't budge. She stood beside Alessio as if she had known him for years, not just minutes. Elena exhaled, then spoke in a quiet voice. We can talk, for a moment. But not here. Mia's hand slipped into hers again and Elena glanced at the nearby park. She likes to play there. It's easier to talk when she's distracted. They walked together toward the park, Mia skipping ahead. No one spoke at first. The tension was thick but not loud. Just years of emotions sitting between them, waiting for someone to make the first honest move. When they reached a bench, Mia ran to the swings, leaving the two adults alone. Alessio shifted slightly in his chair, turning toward Elena. Why did you leave? There was no anger in his voice. Just a steady heaviness that came from years of not understanding. Elena sat down slowly. She rubbed her hands together, looking at her fingers instead of his face. You want the real answer. Not the one people expect me to say. Not the one that sounds polite. I want the truth, he said simply. She took a long breath. 8 years ago. I found out I was pregnant. His heart pushed hard against his ribs, but he didn't interrupt her. I didn't know what to do at first. I was scared. And not because of you, she said quickly, but because of the world you lived in. He stayed silent, letting her talk. You were always kind to me. You were protective. But you were surrounded by people who weren't. Your enemies didn't care about boundaries. Your life was dangerous even on the good days. I used to pretend I wasn't affected by that, but when I realized I was carrying a baby, everything changed. She looked up at him for the first time. I couldn't picture raising a child in that environment. Alessio clenched his hands together lightly. Not out of anger. It was just the only reaction he could control. I was going to tell you, she continued. But every time I tried, something happened. Someone threatened you. Someone got arrested. Someone showed up at your house with a warning. Then one night I realized that if I didn't leave right then, I might never leave at all. She paused and her eyes softened with old pain. I didn't leave to hurt you. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I loved her already. And I didn't want her to grow up in constant fear. Alessio felt the weight of her words sink in slowly. For years he had carried the belief that she had abandoned him without caring. Hearing this truth cracked something inside him. You should have told me, he said quietly. It wasn't an accusation. Just a truth he needed to say out loud. I know, Elena whispered. I know that now. But back then I thought disappearing was the only safe choice. They sat in silence for a moment, watching Mia laugh at something only she found funny. Her joy made the conversation feel heavier, not lighter. Alessio finally spoke again. Is she mine? Elena's eyes followed Mia. Yes. The word wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. It fell between them like something solid. For a moment Alessio didn't breathe. His chest tightened, not painfully, but with a pressure he didn't know how to explain. A strange mixture of shock, relief, and something like grief for the years he missed. Mia ran back to them suddenly and wrapped her arms around his armrest. We're going to the slides next. Elena tried to call her back, but Mia didn't listen. She leaned against Alessio's arm, comfortable and trusting. Elena's expression shifted as she watched them. Not jealous. Not afraid. Just overwhelmed by how natural it looked. Alessio looked down at Mia. You should go before other kids take the slide. Okay. Mia chirped and ran off again. Elena swallowed hard. She likes you. More than she usually likes strangers. I'm not exactly a stranger, he said softly. And that's what scares me, Elena admitted. Because she doesn't know anything about your past. She only sees the way you talked to her. The way you didn't get angry at her yesterday. She sees the man I knew, before everything went wrong. Her voice shook slightly. And a part of me sees that man too. The air between them shifted. Not warm, not romantic, just honest. Raw in a quiet way. They talked about memories they never revisited. They talked about the night she left. They talked about the parts of their relationship that were good and the parts that weren't. They didn't raise their voices. They didn't accuse each other. They spoke like two people who had been holding on to the past for too long. At one point, their hands brushed when they both reached for Mia's fallen bottle. Neither of them pulled away. The contact was brief, but it awakened something familiar. Just as the tension softened into something almost warm, a woman walked toward them with a badge clipped to her shirt. Excuse me, she said, addressing Elena. Are you Miss Hartley? Elena stood quickly. Yes. Is something wrong? The woman gave her a sympathetic look. I'm from the Family Support Office. We've been trying to reach you. It's about your housing situation. Elena's face went pale. This isn't a good time. I understand, ma'am, but it's urgent. The building owner approved the renovation plan. All tenants in your section need to relocate within 30 days. We've sent notices and reminders. Elena swallowed. I received them. The woman softened her voice. We can discuss temporary housing options at the office. But you need to make arrangements soon. Mia came running back, confused. Mommy? What's happening? Elena bent down quickly and hugged her. It's okay, baby. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were not. When the social worker left, Elena sat down heavily, her hands trembling. Alessio watched her closely. You're being evicted? She nodded once. The rent increase is too much. And the temporary places they offer aren't safe. I've been trying to make it work, but I'm out of time. Her voice grew tight. I've been doing everything alone for 7 years. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could protect her by myself. She wiped her cheek discreetly. I'm tired, Alessio. I'm so tired. He didn't say anything dramatic or comforting. He just looked at her with a calm, steady expression. And for the first time, Elena didn't look like a woman running. She looked like someone who needed support but didn't know how to ask for it. Alessio wasn't the type of man who rushed into people's lives, but watching Elena break down quietly on that park bench shifted something in him. It wasn't pity. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't even anger over the years they lost. It was the understanding that he had spent so long believing he didn't deserve softness or connection, and now both were standing right in front of him. One tired mother trying to hold herself together and one little girl who had unknowingly changed everything. He didn't push her with questions. He didn't demand explanations. He simply said, "Let me help." Elena shook her head immediately. "I can't accept something like that. It wouldn't be right." "Why not?" he asked, his voice calm. "Because it'll look like I came back because I needed something." Her voice was thin, like she was trying too hard to sound strong. "And I don't want to take advantage of you. Or drag you back into things you've moved past." "You didn't come back," he replied. "Life pushed you in front of me. And I'm not offering charity. I'm offering responsibility." Elena looked away. "You make it sound easy." "It isn't easy," Alessio said. "But it's simple." She had no comeback for that. She stared at her hands instead, twisting her fingers in a way that told him she wasn't rejecting him. She was afraid of accepting what she needed. He leaned back slightly. "I know places. Good ones. Not expensive. Not dangerous. I can make a few calls and secure something stable for you and Mia." "And in return," she whispered, "what do you expect?" "Nothing," he said honestly. "Just a chance to be part of her life. However slow you want it. However cautious you need to be." Elena pressed a hand to her forehead. "This is a lot. It doesn't have to be decided today," he told her. "You just need a safe place to stay. That's all." She closed her eyes, exhausted. "I don't want to drag you into my problems." "You aren't dragging me anywhere," he said softly. "I'm choosing to show up." After a long silence, she nodded. And that was enough. Alessio kept his word. He arranged an apartment in a quiet, respectable neighborhood, clean, safe, and far from anything connected to his past. The landlord didn't even know who was paying behind the scenes. Alessio made sure of that. He didn't want Elena to feel like she owed him anything. On the day she moved in, Mia ran through the empty rooms with excitement, opening every closet and window as if each one held a secret. Her laughter filled the space easily. Elena watched her daughter run around, relief softening her features. "You didn't have to do all this." "I know," he replied. "But I wanted to." She didn't argue this time. She didn't try to hide her gratitude either. Instead, her shoulders relaxed for the first time in days. Mia ran back and tugged at Alessio's sleeve. "Do you want to see my new room? It's bigger than the old one." He smiled slightly. "Show me." She pulled his wheelchair toward the hallway, talking fast about her ideas for the room. Drawings on the wall, maybe glow-in-the-dark stars, and a corner for art projects that won't get lost. Alessio listened, letting her enthusiasm wash over him like a quiet joy he didn't know he needed. Elena stood behind them, watching the two interact with a softness mixed with disbelief. She wasn't used to seeing someone else step into their world so effortlessly. After Mia finished her tour, she stuck a glitter sticker onto the side of his wheelchair. "Now it's your turn to shine," she said proudly. He chuckled. "You're decorating me?" "Yes." "You look too serious," she replied. Elena hid a small smile behind her hand. In the days that followed, Alessio became a steady presence. Not overwhelming, not forceful, just there. He helped Elena get to work on long days when public transport was unreliable. He picked up Mia from school when Elena stayed late at her job. He showed up for dinner sometimes, bringing simple things Mia liked like strawberry yogurt or stickers shaped like animals. None of it felt heavy. None of it felt like he was trying to take over. It felt natural, like pieces falling into place on their own. Elena watched all of it quietly. Each day, something in her softened a little more. One evening, the sky darkened faster than usual and thunder rumbled in the distance. Elena had stopped by Alessio's penthouse to pick up some boxes he had stored for her, but the storm broke before she could leave. The rain came down in thick sheets, loud and relentless. "It isn't safe to go out in that," Alessio said. "Stay until it calms down." Mia didn't hesitate. "Yeh. Sleep over." Elena shook her head. "We don't want to intrude." "You aren't," he said simply. She hesitated, then sighed. "All right. Just until the storm slows." Dinner turned into a warm, easy moment. Mia talked throughout the meal, asking Alessio questions he wasn't prepared for. Why he couldn't walk anymore, what his favorite color was, why adults forgot to have fun. He answered most of them, and when he didn't want to talk about something, Mia didn't push. She only nodded and moved on to another question. Elena watched them with a thoughtful expression. She ate quietly, letting the comfort of the moment settle around her. After dinner, Mia fell asleep on the couch, curled up under a blanket. Elena stood and carefully adjusted the fabric around her daughter's shoulders. She turned around and found Alessio watching her. "You're doing well," he said softly. Elena brushed her hair away from her face. "I feel like I'm barely keeping things together." "You're doing better than you think." She looked at him for a long moment. "I didn't expect any of this. I didn't expect you to still be the way you were, before everything changed." "I'm not the same," he said. "But not everything changed." She stepped closer, not intentionally but because the room seemed smaller than it was. Her voice lowered. "It's strange seeing you like this. Not in a bad way. Just different. Softer maybe." He gave a quiet exhale, almost a laugh. "I didn't think anyone would ever call me soft." Elena smiled slightly. "I mean it in a good way." They stood there, the sound of rain tapping against the windows, the only light coming from a lamp in the corner. Nothing felt forced. Nothing felt dramatic. It was just two people with too much history standing close enough to feel the truth between them. "You never stopped caring," Elena said softly. "I can see it." He didn't deny it. She hesitated, then the wall she had kept up for years finally cracked. "I never stopped caring either. I just didn't know how to come back." He moved closer, gently, without urgency. "You're here now." There was no tension, no dramatic build-up. The moment simply unfolded the way long, unspoken feelings sometimes do. Elena reached up and touched his cheek lightly, as if she were testing whether he was real. He didn't pull away. Their lips met in a slow, careful kiss. Not rushed, not desperate, just a connection they had been avoiding for far too long. It felt familiar and new at the same time, like stepping back into warmth after years of cold. When they broke apart, Elena rested her forehead against his. "I'm scared." "I know," he whispered. "But you're not alone anymore." She closed her eyes, letting herself breathe for the first time without holding back. Later that night, after they settled Mia into the guest room, Elena sat beside him on the couch. She seemed calmer, but something in her eyes hinted at another truth she had been hiding. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. He turned toward her. "Go on." "It's not serious." "Not yet. But I've been diagnosed with a stress-related heart condition." She rubbed her thumb slowly against her palm. "It's manageable, but only if I take care of myself. And I haven't been doing that." He didn't interrupt. "I've been trying to keep up with everything. Work, bills, Mia, the apartment, and now the relocation. I ignored the symptoms for too long. And the doctor said it's from years of overworking and stress." The room was silent for a moment. Then Alessio spoke gently. "You don't have to keep carrying everything alone." Her eyes warmed with quiet emotion. "I've forgotten what it feels like to share the weight." He reached for her hand slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. He didn't. "You have me now," he said. "Not in the way I used to be. In the way you needed back then." Tears gathered in her eyes, soft and steady. "I don't want to lose myself again. I don't want to lose you again either." "You won't," he said. "Not this time." A small sound came from the hallway. Mia walked in, rubbing her eyes and carrying her blanket. She climbed onto Alessio's lap without hesitation, resting her head against his chest. "Are we a family now?" she asked sleepily. Elena froze. Alessio looked down at the child who had unknowingly turned his whole life upside down. He placed a hand on her back gently. "We always were," he said softly. "We just needed time to find each other again." Mia blinked slowly, nodding with innocent certainty. She curled against him, already drifting back to sleep. Elena watched them, her expression full of quiet acceptance. And for the first time in 8 years, the future didn't feel frightening. It felt possible.